The scream pierced Tuesday morning. Jennifer's coffee cup shattered against her kitchen floor. The sound came again, high-pitched, desperate, terrifying. She rushed to her window, heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. What she saw outside made her blood freeze in her veins. A black woman in yellow, gripping a small white child. The boy was struggling frantically. His blonde hair caught sunlight. His cries echoed down Willowbrook Lane. The woman's hands were firm, restraining. The child seemed trapped. Jennifer's mind raced to dark places. Kidnapping, abduction, a child in danger. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed her phone. The numbers 911 felt heavy under her touch. She had to act fast. Every second mattered now. 28-year-old Jennifer Walsh had lived on Willowbrook Lane for 3 years. She wore her favorite lavender cardigan over dark jeans, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She considered herself observant, protective of her neighborhood. But this morning, her assumptions would lead to consequences she never imagined. Detective Sarah Coleman received a call at 9:47 a.m. The dispatch described a possible abduction in progress. A concerned neighbor reported suspicious behavior. Sarah, 32 and wearing her standard Navy uniform, had worked these suburban calls before. Most turned out to be misunderstandings. But protocol demanded she respond immediately. The woman in question was Keisha Williams, 29, dressed in a soft yellow sundress and white cardigan. Her natural hair was styled in protective braids, and she wore comfortable walking shoes. She held her 4-year-old adopted son Marcus, who wore a bright blue t-shirt with cartoon dinosaurs and matching shorts. Marcus had pale skin, blonde curls, and bright blue eyes, a stark contrast to his mother's dark complexion. What Jennifer couldn't see from her window was the love in Keisha's eyes, the gentle way she spoke to her son, or the medical alert bracelet on the boy's small wrist. From Jennifer's distant view, the sight was jarring. A black woman holding a white child who appeared to be struggling. Her mind immediately jumped to the worst possible scenario. The racial difference between them made Jennifer assume there was no way this could be the child's mother. She couldn't fathom any innocent explanation for what she was witnessing. Marcus had autism spectrum disorder. Mornings could be overwhelming for him. The transition from inside to outside sometimes triggered meltdowns. Keisha had learned to hold him close, speaking in soothing tones until the episode passed. She'd been doing this dance of patience and love for 3 years, ever since she'd adopted him from a foster care system. Today was no different, except for the woman watching from window 1247, whose assumptions were about to turn their world upside down. As Sarah's patrol car turned onto Willowbrook Lane, she spotted the scene immediately. A black woman holding a child who appeared to be struggling. Sarah parked carefully, her training kicking in. She approached slowly, hands visible, voice calm. "Good morning," Sarah called out. "I'm Detective Coleman. I received a call about this location. Is everything okay here?" Keisha looked up, surprised but not alarmed. She'd dealt with misunderstandings before, though none quite this serious. "Yes, officer. This is my son Marcus. He's having a difficult morning." She gently adjusted her hold as Marcus began to calm down. He has autism, and sometimes transitions are hard for him. Sarah's eyes took in the scene. The clear racial difference between mother and child, the way the little boy was now clinging peacefully to the woman, the obvious care in her voice. "Ma'am, I need to ask, is this your child?" "Yes, he's my adopted son," Keisha said calmly, understanding exactly why the question was being asked. "I have all his documentation with me. I always do because of situations like this." "Mama, I'm better now," Marcus whispered, his small arms wrapping around his mother's neck. Sarah immediately recognized the dynamic. She'd seen it with her own nephew. The protective hold, the soothing voice, the gradual calming. This wasn't restraint. It was pure motherly love. But she had to follow through with the call. "Ma'am, do you have identification? I need to document this call." Keisha nodded, understanding the position they were both in. She carefully shifted Marcus to one arm and reached into her purse, pulling out her driver's license and Marcus's medical information card. I always carry his medical details. This happens sometimes when people don't understand. From her window, Jennifer watched the interaction unfold. Something in her chest tightened as she observed the gentle way the woman spoke to the officer, how the child clung to her with obvious trust and affection. The realization began to dawn on her slowly, uncomfortably. Sarah examined the identification and medical documentation. Everything checked out perfectly. Keisha Williams lived just 2 blocks away. Marcus had detailed medical records indicating his autism diagnosis and behavioral triggers. This was clearly a mother caring for a child during a difficult moment. "I'm sorry you had to deal with this," Sarah said quietly. "Someone called in a concern, but I can see this is just a misunderstanding." "Thank you for being kind about it," Keisha replied, her voice carrying both gratitude and weariness. "It's not the first time." As Sarah returned to her car to file her report, she noticed a woman in a lavender cardigan standing on the porch of House 1247. Their eyes met briefly before the woman quickly went inside. Sarah knew who had made the call. Inside her house, Jennifer sat heavily on her couch, the weight of her mistake pressing down on her. She jumped to conclusions based on nothing more than the racial difference she'd observed and her own biases. A mother comforting her adopted child had become, in her mind, a kidnapping in progress. The shame was overwhelming, made worse by the realization of how deeply her assumptions had been influenced by race. But this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. 3 days later, Jennifer found herself standing in her kitchen, staring at a plate of homemade cookies. She'd been thinking about that morning nonstop, about the gentle way Keisha had spoken to the officer, about the trust in the little boy's eyes when he looked at his mother, about her own assumptions and their painful consequences. She'd learned from her neighbor Rose that the family she reported lived on Oakwood Street. The little boy, Marcus, had been adopted from foster care when he was 18 months old. He'd been born with autism to a teenage mother who couldn't care for him. Keisha, who worked as a pediatric nurse at the Children's Hospital, had fallen in love with him during his medical visits and eventually adopted him. She volunteered at the community center on weekends, often bringing Marcus to inclusive playgroups. She was exactly the kind of mother and neighbor Jennifer wished she could be. The cookies were Jennifer's grandmother's recipe. Chocolate chip with a touch of sea salt. She'd made them every time she needed to apologize for something big. Today felt like one of those times. The walk to Oakwood Street felt longer than usual. Jennifer wore a simple blue dress and carried the cookies in a wicker basket her grandmother had given her. Her heart pounded with each step. She'd rehearsed what she would say, but now the words felt inadequate. The house at 847, Oakwood Street was modest but welcoming. Flower boxes lined the front porch, filled with bright marigolds and petunias. A small bicycle with training wheels sat beside the steps. Wind chimes played a gentle melody in the afternoon breeze. Jennifer knocked softly. Through the door, she could hear the sound of cartoons playing and a child's laughter. Her stomach knotted with anxiety and regret. Keisha opened the door, wearing scrubs decorated with cartoon animals. She'd clearly just returned from her shift at the hospital. When she saw Jennifer, recognition flickered across her face, but her expression remained neutral and cautious. "Hi," Jennifer said quietly. "I'm Jennifer Walsh. I live on Willowbrook Lane. I think you know why I'm here." Keisha studied her for a moment. The call on Tuesday morning. "Yes." Jennifer's voice barely rose above a whisper. "I made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry." From inside the house, Marcus appeared at his mother's side, peeking curiously at the visitor. He wore the same dinosaur shirt from Tuesday, now paired with different shorts. His bright eyes showed no fear, only innocent curiosity. "Marcus, go watch your show. I'll be right there," Keisha said gently. The little boy nodded and skipped back to the living room. Keisha stepped onto the porch, closing the door partially behind her. "What do you want me to say? That it's okay? That these things happen?" "No," Jennifer said quickly. "I don't want you to say it's okay, because it's not." I jumped to conclusions based on nothing but my own ignorance. I put you and your son through something awful because I made assumptions. She held out the basket of cookies, her hands shaking slightly. "These won't fix what I did. Nothing can. But I want to show you that I'm trying to learn from this. I want to be better. Keisha looked at the cookies, then back at Jennifer. Do you know what my son asked me that night? Jennifer shook her head, afraid to hear the answer. He asked if the police lady thought he was bad because his mama looks different from him. A 4-year-old child asked if people think it's wrong that his black mama loves him. Keisha's voice remained steady, but Jennifer could see the pain in her eyes. I had to explain to him that some people don't understand that families can look different and that some people make assumptions based on skin color. The words hit Jennifer like a physical blow. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I never thought. That's exactly the problem, Keisha said. You saw a black woman with a white child who was upset, and your first instinct was to assume something criminal was happening. You didn't consider that I might be his mother, that families come in all different combinations. Jennifer nodded, tears building in her eyes. You're right. There's no excuse for that. I was wrong, completely wrong. For a long moment, they stood in silence. The wind chimes continued their gentle song, and somewhere in the distance, children played in a backyard. My grandmother made these cookies whenever she needed to make a real apology, Jennifer said finally. She always said that sorry is just a word unless you back up with action. I don't know what action looks like yet, but I want to try. Keisha studied Jennifer's face, seeing genuine remorse and something else, something vulnerable. What do you know about autism? Honestly, almost nothing. I know I should learn. Marcus has been attending a support group at the community center. Other families with autistic children. The group is always looking for volunteers who want to understand better. Keisha paused, weighing her words carefully. If you're serious about learning, about being better, maybe that's where you start. Jennifer nodded eagerly. Yes, I like that. I'd like to learn. The next meeting is Saturday at 10. Community Center on Pine Street. Ask for Dr. Riley Martinez. Tell her I sent you. Keisha reached for the basket of cookies. And Jennifer? This doesn't mean we're friends. Trust has to be earned. But it's a start. I understand. Thank you for giving me a chance to try. As Jennifer walked home, she felt the weight of her mistake differently. It was still heavy, but now it carried the possibility of growth, of becoming someone better. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Jennifer arrived at the community center 15 minutes early, wearing jeans and a comfortable sweater. She'd researched autism spectrum disorder for hours, reading articles and watching videos, trying to understand what she'd witnessed that Tuesday morning. The meeting room was bright and welcoming, with colorful children's artwork on the walls and comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Dr. Riley Martinez, a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and graying temples, greeted Jennifer warmly. Keisha mentioned you might be joining us, Dr. Martinez said. We're always glad to have community members who want to learn and support our families. The other attendees arrived gradually. Parents, grandparents, and siblings of children with autism, along with a few community volunteers. Jennifer recognized some faces from the neighborhood, people she'd seen at the grocery store or post office, but never really connected with. When Keisha arrived with Marcus, Jennifer felt her stomach flutter with nervousness. Marcus wore a bright green shirt with a smiling dinosaur and carried a small stuffed elephant. He seemed more relaxed than he had on Tuesday, chatting quietly with his mother as they found seats. Good morning, everyone, Dr. Martinez began. Today we're discussing sensory triggers and coping strategies. For those who might be new to these concepts, children with autism often experience the world differently than neurotypical children. Sounds, textures, lights, or changes in routine can be overwhelming. As the discussion progressed, Jennifer began to understand what she'd witnessed that Tuesday morning. Marcus's meltdown hadn't been misbehavior or distress about being with his mother. It had been his nervous system trying to cope with overwhelming sensory input. Keisha's response hadn't been restraint. It had been exactly what Marcus needed to feel safe and regulated. Sometimes, one father shared, people see our children having a meltdown and assume we're bad parents, or that something's wrong beyond what's actually happening. They don't understand that this is how our kids' brains work sometimes. The hardest part, added another mother, is when strangers make assumptions or get involved without understanding the situation. It makes an already difficult moment even worse. Jennifer felt her cheeks burn with recognition. She was the stranger they were talking about. She was the person who'd made things worse. During the break, Marcus approached Jennifer cautiously. He stood a few feet away, studying her with curious eyes. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi, Marcus," Jennifer replied gently. "I like your dinosaur shirt." He smiled shyly and pointed to the green dinosaur on his shirt. "This is Rex. He's nice, not scary like in movies." "He does look very friendly," Jennifer agreed. "Sometimes I get overwhelmed," Marcus said matter-of-factly. "Mama helps me feel better." That's what she was doing when you saw us. The simple, honest explanation from a 4-year-old hit Jennifer harder than any adult lecture could have. "I'm sorry I didn't understand that, Marcus. I'm learning now so I can be a better neighbor." Marcus nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense to him. "Learning is good. Mama says everyone makes mistakes, but good people try to fix them." When the meeting ended, Jennifer approached Keisha hesitantly. "Thank you for suggesting I come. I learned so much." "Dr. Martinez runs these meetings twice a month," Keisha said. "There's also a sensory-friendly playground session on Thursday afternoons. Families bring their kids who need a quieter, less overwhelming play environment. Would it be helpful if I volunteered? I could help with setup or cleanup, anything you think would be useful." Keisha considered this. "Actually, yes. We always need help carrying equipment and organizing supplies. It would give you a chance to see how these kids play and interact when they have the right environment." Over the following weeks, Jennifer threw herself into learning and volunteering. She attended every support group meeting, helped with the sensory-friendly playground sessions, and even took an online course in autism awareness. She began to see Marcus not as a child with problems, but as a bright, funny kid who experienced the world uniquely. One Thursday afternoon, as Jennifer was helping pack up playground equipment, Marcus ran up to her with his stuffed elephant. "Miss Jennifer, look what Elliot can do." He made the elephant dance and spin, giggling at its floppy movements. "Wow, Elliot is a great dancer," Jennifer said, genuinely delighted by the child's joy. "Do you want to play with us next week?" Marcus asked. "Mama says you're getting good at understanding." Jennifer looked over at Keisha, who nodded with the first real smile she'd seen from her. "I'd love to play with you and Elliot," Jennifer said. That evening, Jennifer sat in her kitchen, thinking about the journey from that Tuesday morning to this moment. The shame of her mistake would always be with her, but it had transformed into something more useful, a commitment to do better, to see people as individuals rather than assumptions. 2 months later, Jennifer received a call from Dr. Martinez. The community center had received a grant to expand their autism support programs, and they needed someone to coordinate volunteer efforts. Would Jennifer be interested? The irony wasn't lost on her. The woman who had once called the police on an autistic child and his mother was now being asked to help support families dealing with similar challenges. It felt like a chance at redemption she didn't deserve but desperately wanted to earn. When she called Keisha to ask about the position, Keisha's response surprised her. "I recommended you," Keisha said simply. "You've shown up consistently for months. You've learned and grown and proved that people can change. The families trust you now. But after what I did, because of what you did," Keisha corrected. "And more importantly, because of what you did after, that's the person we need in this role." The morning Jennifer started her new position, she stood in the same spot on Willowbrook Lane where she'd first seen Keisha and Marcus. The memory was still painful, but now it served as a reminder of how much could change when someone chose growth over defensiveness. A year later, the autism support program had doubled in size. Jennifer had helped train dozens of community volunteers, organized awareness events, and created resource guides for local businesses. But the moment she treasured most was a simple one. Marcus, now 5 and more confident, had invited Jennifer to his birthday party. As she watched him blow out his candles, surrounded by friends from his support group and typical peers who learned to appreciate his uniqueness, she felt a deep gratitude for the terrible mistake that had led her here. Keisha approached her during the party, carrying a small wrapped gift. "What's this?" Jennifer asked. "A thank you," Keisha said, "for proving that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes." Inside the package was a framed photo of Marcus at the playground, laughing as he went down the slide. At the bottom, in Keisha's neat handwriting, were the words, "Every child deserves to be seen for who they are." Jennifer hung the photo in her office at the community center, where it served as a daily reminder of the weight of assumptions and the power of redemption. She learned that kindness wasn't just about being nice. It was about taking the time to understand, to see beyond surface appearances, and to fight against the biases that lived in everyone's heart. The story could have ended with that phone call on a Tuesday morning. Instead, it became the beginning of something beautiful, a community more aware, more accepting, and more kind. Because sometimes the most profound changes come from our deepest mistakes, if we're brave enough to learn from them. As Jennifer often told new volunteers, the day I called the police on a mother comforting her autistic son was the day I realized how much I didn't know about the world around me. The day I decided to learn was the day my real life began. In a world quick to judge and slow to understand, Jennifer's journey from assumption to awareness became a quiet testament to the possibility of change. Not dramatic, headline-grabbing change, but the steady, intentional growth that happens when someone decides to be better than they were before. And in the end, that's the kindest thing anyone can do, to see their mistakes not as endings, but as beginnings.